Anti-Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we're getting into some more solo leveling, getting into the halfway point of this part of the series so far, which is exciting. I'm very excited to get into this episode, not just because it has my boy Jinho and I love him very much, and any kind of airtime with him I'm definitely here for, but also because we're going to get to see Jinho and his actual abilities now. Like, we saw a little bit when he was doing the instance dungeon, and then we saw when he like one-shotted that creature that came through the gate. So he has shown off some of his ability so far, but now that he's like fully in 2.0 mode with his glow up and everything, we're gonna finally get to see him like really unleash his abilities for what they are right now. I know that there's a lot more to come with his abilities, but just like his strength and skill that he has as a fighter right now, really looking forward to that. And also just the bond that he ends up having with Jinho is just really interesting. In many ways they are opposites of each other, but this is kind of the moment where they end up trusting a little bit more in each other, ironically because of the horrific betrayal that they both experienced. But I'm excited to see some of the fight scenes that are definitely going to come out of this episode, so let's just get into it. In 3, 2, 1, go. So smug. The fact that they're like, we could have just done it ourselves. All that talk of being like, don't say that, call him weak in front of him, like, be nice. Such a manipulative thing to do. It is flashy, like flashing our wealth there a little bit. It literally sparkles. I hate like the optics there of him being like, I guess I should show up to the funeral. Bold assumptions. He's got this. I mean, I don't know if I'd call you weak, but also considering where the series is going, I know in comparison, one might call him weak at this point. I love the like the camera angle of that shot, like following his movements. There he is. Demon mode. Excited to, I mean, look, does Dino's demon mode kind of intimidate me and make me worried about like his psychological state? Yes. However, it is very entertaining to watch. The entertainment value is there. It's just when I really start to think of like the consequences that I start to go, uh-oh, you know? But one thing I will say is like one of the things that I found weird for like a couple of the episodes was how much Jino was like talking out loud to himself. It just felt like an excuse to get exposition done, even though there are times when it's like internal narration. but they would just switch between them. And I'm like, why are you talking out loud so much to yourself in this empty space? Right? But now that he's like around other people, it's all like internal narration because he can't just be speaking out loud to himself because it's weird, you know? And I say that as someone who definitely occasionally speaks out loud to themselves, probably more than the average person, because I think better when I can speak out loud, talk my way through it. I mean, I'm technically talking to myself now, but it's still weird that that was like a thing that he was doing, and it's cut down now that he's like around other people. And also he has an excuse to do a certain exposition because Jinho is there. So he has a character now that he can like talk to say like, oh, the audience needs to know this piece of information, so we better like have him tell us a whole explanation of what's going on. It was just weird when he was on his own for so long to have that. I mean, considering the scars, I would say you're a man of action. Hmm. I like that shot of like the light coming over his face when he smiles. I mean, you fought armored foes before. Our poor boy who's just like, what is happening? Yeah, you should probably be afraid of him. Probably not in the way that you're thinking, but you should be afraid. I mean, you've already been stuck in a dungeon with people who seem to kill without really thinking about it, so you've been through it, my boy. It is sad to see Jinho like that though, where like he's convinced that he is about to die or like be horrifically killed. Oh, when in doubt, go for the face. Ooh, I love the animation there. Aim for the wrong spot, my boy. Uh-oh. You weren't paying attention to your stats. Rookie mistake. I do love that some more of the stylized art is coming through at this point. Like not only in the fighting, but in the like color choices, because that's one of my favorite things about the manhwa is the color choices, like the color design. Like you can see these hints of red on the spider, but then most of it is like blue washed. And then you have like Jinho with the like gold. See, demon mode. He almost gets like frenzied. Love the music design there of like the strings and the way that it's like building up. Yeah, I'd be freaked out too. Love the formalities now. Like before he was like, you can talk casually, and now he's like, formalities, please. You scare me. Oh, the way he took his hand back so quickly. Oh, like he doesn't even know how much he intimidates people. Speaking of not understanding social cues. Ugh. Now you have something they want with that like gemstone that you took from the boss. Uh-oh. All these high ranked hunters just causing property damage. I think it's an interesting line there to say like training won't increase your ranking unless you're a certain someone who levels up. Mm-hmm. Human nature can, on many occasions, be disappointing. The fact that they're like not even gonna do it themselves, like they're like, oh, let's just pit them against each other instead of getting our hands dirty is like a whole other level of manipulation and grossness. Our boy's not gonna do it. He's too scared, but also he doesn't have the heart for it. The fact that he put himself between the two of them, though, again, symbolic of like him being willing to protect people. I know I talked about how like there are hunters who are not great people, and it's kind of playing off the trope of like expecting there to be heroes. But I mean, like I feel like Jinho also does a good job of like embodying that nobility. And then we have Jinho having a literal quest to commit mass murder. You know, like being effectively a serial killer extremely quickly. Things are about to get shaken up, though. I was like, I feel like you have to like clarify that like he's not a bad person. I feel like most of the time if someone's not a bad person, you don't need to clarify that so pointedly. Mm-hmm. We know of at least one of those. At least for as long as they last, which won't be very long. But I feel like again the only reason they got that hidden is because he was so surprised by getting his new quest. I find it so interesting to have that shift back into his voice when he was the weakest, right? I hate this moment of like the breaking of him. Like speaking of Juno 2.0, needing to really leave behind who he was before. This is like the survival instinct kicking in. Like we've seen it before where he's like doing everything to survive and like the desperation that comes with that. But this is like a different thing, right? Like if the system wasn't like your heart will stop if you don't complete this quest, he could defeat them without actually killing them, right? Like he doesn't need to kill this enemy in order to survive other than the system pushing him to do it. Oof, this is like the true demon mode. We've seen hints of it, but this is where he like we really get a look at it. Oh, he understands a lot better than you do. Yup. Yeah. I remember reading this and going, holy like he did it so quickly too. Yep, he's so detached and that's what scares me. Yep. Point of no return. Like it's a brutal, like quick slaughtering of them. Yep. Like he doesn't just kill them, it's like horrific in the way that he does it. And like oddly efficient, but like he's so detached and he does it so quickly. Yep. Bet. Yep. Like, he gets stronger as the battle progresses, which is not what people plan on. They plan on, like, him getting weaker, more fatigued. That's not the quest. I like how he offers, like, money and wealth because that's what he understands. Ugh. Oh. Like, it's such a breaking point in his character. And it makes me so sad. Look at our poor sunshine. We're just gonna ignore the one that has a bunch of blood on him. Nope. Oh. And then immediate shift into, like, being aware of his sister. This whole thing makes me want to cry. And we meet the brother. Oh, I like how we didn't get, like, anything. Just, like, just him, like, having this slight reaction that was happening. Okay, I'm gonna not watch all the way through because I always do, but there isn't a proper preview, and also I know what's about to happen in the story, so I don't actually need a preview. See, this part in the story is why I have so many suspicions and I'm so on edge about the system around Jinwoo's power, because it definitely made him do that, right? And, like, again, like I was saying, there's a difference between his need to survive when someone is, like, actively trying to kill him and there is absolutely no way for him to get out of this situation without killing his opponent. There's something different about beating the boss of a dungeon in order to survive that situation and get out of the situation than what is happening here. Like, he could have taken out this strike team without killing them and gotten out of the dungeon because they had already beaten the boss, so he could have just gotten out without actually fighting them, left them behind, or defeated them just by knocking them out or injuring them. Like, there were different ways that he could have gotten out of that situation without having to kill all of them and without having to, like, kill a human, being very different from killing, like, a monster. But because of the way that the system works, it forced him into that situation of, like, instantly not only becoming a murderer but also becoming a serial killer. He killed 6 people in quick succession with this very, like, detached feeling to it. And part of him is like, oh, the system wants me to be alive, like, it wants me to survive, and him having that revelation. But also, what does the system want him to become? Like, why is it making him level up the way that it is? Why is it giving him the abilities that it is, or the quests that it is? Like, what is the ultimate goal of this system choosing Jinwoo? Why him? And what's the end goal? What does it need him for? Like, there's so many questions I have about that I still need to read in the manhwa, but this is very much a shifting point, like, you know, halfway through this part of the series, and him very much needing to leave behind everything that he was before, needing to be detached, needing to leave behind a lot of the like optimism, not just because of being betrayed and him saying like the weak are always taken from, and him having that cynicism, but also he can't go back now. He can't go back to being who he was. He can't separate himself from the decisions that he has made, and like he's a different person now because of what he's done and how that shifts him and like how it makes him more and more detached. And that's one of the things that I worry about. Again, it's really entertaining to see him in like his demon mode where he's just really brutally efficient at defeating enemies. It's another thing to think about the person and how he has to continue to detach and dissociate and not get involved again, like the grounding of his life in his family, his friends, his home, reality outside of dungeons and fighting and leveling up. He has to pull away from that, because how do you go back to being a loving brother when you've just killed 6 people? How do you do those two things? And I really like that they had the line where it started raining. He's like, oh, I'm glad that I told her to take an umbrella. We see him go back into that brother mode of still like caring about someone else, of, you know, now that he is back in soul, back into his normal everyday life, he is reverting back to who he usually is, but it's tainted now. Like he can't fully be that person, and he just continues to like detach more and more and more because it's easier that way. Like he doesn't have to deal as much with the fact that he is transforming, becoming someone else that maybe he doesn't entirely agree with, because he has made this deal to be stronger or to use this ability, but also because the choice is survival or not. It's down to, does he want to live enough that he is willing to do these things? And for someone who has constantly said like, oh, I just want to survive, I just want to make it, and have that desperation there, he has already been in a near-death experience. He's already experienced what that desperation is like, and to be so close to losing his life that he is just terrified of being there again, that when he is pushed to that point, he's going to cave. Like he's going to choose the option that is survival, which I think the majority of us would also have a hard time with that. I think most of us are horrifically terrified of what death is and what that will mean for us. So it makes sense, but at the same time, it's awful. And like, it just makes me want to cry. Like it breaks my heart, because you can see him needing to dissociate from it, needing to completely empty himself out of any kind of humanity or personality or who he is, down to this cynicism, because he has to survive. Like he's chosen survival, and because of that, he has to sacrifice something else about himself. Like he has to lose parts of himself in order to just be alive. But at what point is it survival instead of actually living and being a person and experiencing all of the joys and good things in the world? I don't know. It's such a complicated thing. Like I feel like this episode is so important in debating about who Juno is, and like his character and his choices, and why he does the things that he does, and how his character starts to shift as the series goes through. It's both him meeting Jinho, who I think does help him to ground and to trust and to keep some of that humanity of his, like same with his sister, and then also going through the other part of this where he is irreversibly changed, and he has decided that he is willing to sacrifice other people's lives in order for him to keep on living. He has made that decision, and there's no going back from that, and it continues to be a thing that shapes who he is and his abilities and why he makes the decisions that he does. And it's just a fascinating part of the story. But I hope you enjoyed watching that along with me. You can click this playlist to go see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe to miss next time I post a solo leveling reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.